Well, hello everybody. Wow, what a week that has been since our last podcast was aired. It's episode 39, and at the time that we're recording this, it's Wednesday, and let's just say stuff hit the fan. If I'm saying it correctly, am I saying it correctly?
Yeah, it's been a very eventful day. Of course, as usual, welcome back to the Behind the Net podcast. We're your two hosts, Matthew and Michael.
Hey guys, how's it going?
And I mean it's been a crazy day, and for very good reason, of course, for very good reason. So I mean, this is we felt like we really need to hop on the podcast tonight to get our immediate reactions, of course, because it's a very important topics. It's a very important topic to discuss either way, but this is breaking news, so we definitely want to talk about it. But for anyone who hasn't kind of been informed, but basically a few days ago, on Sunday, Jacob Blake, a black man in Wisconsin, was shot by police officers, 7 rounds. He took 7 rounds while he was going back to his car, and his children were in the car. And the video is there if you want the full story. If you it's very tough to see the video, honestly, but if you feel like you can probably search for it and find it, but it's very graphic, so a little warning there. But you know, it's just, I mean, it's been so frustrating seeing this time and time again, and you know, we really are seriously fighting for change, and as a result of what happened, you know, the players, of course, the NBA players, the athletes, we know how we've been talking about it for the last few months, how, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement and everything that everyone is fighting for, it does translate into sports. And we saw that especially today when the Milwaukee Bucks decided to boycott their Game 5, which they were going to play. They were scheduled to play today, Wednesday, 4 p.m., I believe. And they boycotted. They refused to leave their locker room, and as a result, the other two games, so 4 teams that were scheduled to play today, the OKC Thunder and the Houston Rockets, they both agreed to boycott the game. So that game, it was not played today, and the Los Angeles Lakers and Portland Trailblazers game is being boycotted. And I want to stress, it is boycotted and not postponed. It's being postponed as a result of the boycott, but that is something I definitely want to drive home there. But
yeah,
as of right now, the NBA players are boycotting their games, and rightfully so. So of course it's huge news. And Michael, I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, in regards to the video of the incident itself, when I watched it first, I was horrified, I was saddened, and I was angry. Because here we go again, the same stuff that's been happening for months, the same thing that everyone's been protesting for weeks, is happening yet again, as if nothing's been happening. So to see the players make such a huge statement by boycotting their games, and plenty more games are going to be boycotted for sure, that sends a pretty loud message. As the title of this podcast says, asking the question, is it loud enough? I'd say that's pretty loud, and we can make it even louder, because, well, it's definitely appreciative that the players were taking knees and showing on the back of their jerseys Black Lives Matter and all those messages. I think when something like this happens, people will notice. People will pay attention to, hey, this is really real. And the players are telling the world what happened to us, to Jacob Blake, hurt us so much that we cannot play. That has to send a message.
Of course. And I basically felt the exact same feelings you felt. Again, it was saddening. It was terrifying to see. And it was just it's just so sad to see it happen time and time again. And we know that it's been happening historically. And that's exactly why we all are, you know, fighting for this change. We need to protect our Black brothers and sisters, people of color, just the minorities and the Black community as a whole. And you know, months ago when the George Floyd shooting happened and the protests came about for that, a lot of people hoped that change would happen. And, NBA players have talked about this. They didn't want their return to the NBA bubble to, be a distraction. And famously, Kyrie Irving spoke about that and decided to sit out of the bubble. And now, obviously, like I said, it's been happening. And don't just think that those, a lot of people who might not be tuned in as much might think that those protests, even though the coverage for those protests maybe might have decreased a little, these problems are still happening at an alarming rate. And now another police brutality shooting has happened, and it's in the public eye, especially because it's caught on video. So it's just one of those things that it's just another instance that brings it right back to the forefront. It rightfully so should be brought right back to the forefront. So it's just sad seeing that, and I fully support the players for doing what they can do, because, hey, look, we're talking about it here because a boycott, the NBA boycotting, like the NBA players boycotting their games, is such a huge statement to make. It's amazing. It's spectacular. And to all those people who are saying, there are a lot of people who are saying maybe they just don't get what it does, this kind of statement, but to everyone who are questioning what kind of statement is being made when this happens, is it's just flat out, it's a huge statement. It's getting people talking, and hopefully it is raising awareness for what what these players and what Black communities and pretty much allies in general are fighting for.
And I guess really comes down to this: how many more times are we going to be seeing these situations happening with Black people and people of color in general being oppressed, racially discriminated against, and flat out murdered before real change is happening? And I'm just sick and tired of the same stuff happening over and over and over again. I know you're sick and tired of it too.
Of course.
Because we want to be able to progress forward in society, not to have to think about things that are holding it back of continuing to progress. Because as much as I love to say things are going to get better, things are going to become sunshine and roses, we're all going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. It's not going to happen. Not until we see real change. And when are we going to see it? I want to see it. I know you do, but when are we going to see it?
Exactly. And I think that's why we both are here supporting the boycotts by these NBA players, and we definitely just want to see change now. And I want to just let you guys know, that everyone who's listening, what we have in store this episode, because I think it would be better, because we interviewed Vivek Jacob, a Toronto Raptors reporter. He covers the Raptors for a number of websites and basketball in general, but we were able to talk to him immediately after this news and about what's going on, so we talk more about that there. So we'll get it more in depth about how we feel about everything there, but Michael, I just want to ask you, what do you think will happen from here?
It's really tough to say, because I'm hearing so many conflicting reports regards to what the NBA players think about the future of the season. Obviously, right now, all the games have been postponed. To what date we're not 100% sure. There are some players that think the seasons is in jeopardy, because, as a tweet from Waj earlier today put it, there's others that are saying the NBA players want to keep playing for reasons that I can't remember off the top of my head. But they, like I said, there's a lot of conflicting reports on what's going to be happening. And I guess really, I'd say the first step should be to just postpone the next week. And I told you this earlier in a DM. They should just hold things off for a week, just to figure things out, and then decide what they want to do in terms of should the season continue? Should we just postpone it indefinitely? Just wait until November, December to start playing again? Just have no championship for this bubble and just get on with it. But really, it's really tough to say because everything is moving so fast. And it's just like it was a few months ago. Those were moving so fast. It's real. I can't, not really sure what's going to be happening next. This is really crazy. Everything that's been happening the last few hours.
Mm-hmm. But again, rightfully so, these things are happening with a good intention behind it. So full support from us all the way. And yeah, for me, it's a lot of the same feelings about what's the next steps. But what I know for sure is it's for the right reason, and we'll just see how it pans out. Yeah, and I mean, going back even to your point, I just want to touch on the fact that I really think the players should also have the platform to boycott still. I know how you said, the league should just postpone the season for at least another week. I still think like I don't want to see it as the NBA just postponing the games right away. I want to be able to see, the players have the platform to come out and say we're boycotting this game, because I almost feel like if the NBA stepped up right now and just postponed the next week, then it takes a lot of attention off the players from, announcing their own boycotts, right? If you can get what I'm saying. But yeah, like essentially there's so much power in these boycotts happening. Like it's taking people back, like, whoa, this team is not wanting to play. I wonder why. Like people might be saying that, and then they find out why, and it really raises the awareness in that. And I just, I don't know how the NBA will go about the next week or even the next few hours or next day, but I would love to be able to see, the Raptors or the Celtics, who are scheduled to play tomorrow, Thursday, actually be able to say, we are boycotting this game, or, what other teams to be able to say that, rather than the NBA come out tonight and say the following games are postponed, and kind of take that voice away from the teams. If you get what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But
I totally get it.
Again, I want to be able to see that, because just going back to the whole point that I think this statement, maybe it doesn't bring direct change, and a lot of people who are kind of arguing what's going on right now, maybe they don't see that, any direct change, and that's why they're not able to grasp the impact that this has. But I think that the statement of, a boycott and not playing these games obviously got the whole sports world talking right now. And if more teams and players can do that, like it's such a drastic action, then it'll catch on, or it'll make people, really realize what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And really what it comes down to is just making an impact, raising awareness, using their platform to make a big statement. And this boycott is a big statement. We have not seen anything like this from any sports leagues in a very long time. I just noticed on Twitter that the last time the NBA did a boycott of a game was back in 1961. And it was with Bill Russell and many others leading the way because of similar issues to what's happening today of racial injustice. So these problems have not gone away in the many years between that last boycott and this one. And that should really tell you that if there's going to be real change, you have to make an impact in some way that gets people to hear. And I hope now that after tonight, that people have heard loud and clear that there needs to be change.
100%. And again, we were able to interview Vivek Jacob, a Raptors reporter, and we speak more about this with him and about his reaction. So I think this is the best time to go right into that interview while we're on this topic. So how about we go into that now? On today's podcast, we're so pleased to be joined by Vivek Jacob. Vivek is a freelance writer for Complex Canada and Raptors Republic. He's also a weekly guest on the Locked On Raptors podcast and has written pieces for The Athletic, Vice, Sportsnet, and North Pole Hoops, just to name a few. Welcome to the show, Vivek. How are you today?
Well, thank you for that very kind intro. I'm doing all right, obviously, reacting to the breaking news as it happens. Pretty crazy day for the NBA and sports in general. I think it's a day that is going to be remembered for a very long time.
100%. I definitely think today will be even a day, much like the day when the NBA shut down. I think today will be another big day that'll be in the history books as well, especially in terms of sports history as well. But even on a broader note there. Um, of course, I want to tell the listeners that we are recording this on Wednesday evening. We originally had planned to have Vivek on to talk about the Raptors round two series against the Celtics, but before we get into any Raptors talk or any round two preview talk, I do want to touch on what happened today. And so the Milwaukee Bucks boycotted their Game 5 in the wake of the Jacob Blake shooting, and the rest of the scheduled teams today followed suit and boycotted their games. First, Vivek, I just want to ask you, where were you and what was your reaction to that? And did you kind of see it coming?
To the Bucks boycott,
Yeah.
I honestly did not see it coming because all the conversation the past couple of days, it sounded like the Celtics and the Raptors were the only ones who were, thinking about a boycott. And then you look at, there were games that happened on Tuesday, there were games that happened on Monday, and so uh, I thought if there was a game or a couple of teams that were going to lead the way or start boycotting, I thought it was going to be the Celtics and Raptors. So it definitely caught me off guard when the news came out that the Bucks were not had not entered the court. And then as soon as I saw that on Twitter, I went and flipped on the TV, and the Magic left the court soon after. And yeah, here we are now with all the games postponed for Wednesday, and I can't imagine anything's going to change that for Thursday either.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Just for the listeners that are aware, tomorrow is supposed to be game one between the Raptors and the Celtics. And as we said, we were supposed to be talking about that. But since they have been discussing potentially boycotting the game, and judging from the fact that not only is the Bucks game boycotted, but so is the other two games tonight, I can't be too shocked if that happens with the Raptors. So I want to ask you, tell us what the mindset is and feelings from the Raptors about the situation.
They are fed up. They are, in their words, sick and tired of being sick and tired. They came in to this bubble, hoping that their social justice messages, constantly speaking on the issues to try and keep the conversation going, would be the right move, that it would spark change and build on the momentum of the protests from the killing of George Floyd. But that has obviously not been the case. We have seen it, and Jacob Blake's shooting is just a tipping point. And I think for them, obviously they didn't. They at no point did they think that this was all that they needed to do. But I think it's sort of raised the impetus to do more right now. And the boycott, it's just to make the board of governors act quickly, to make politicians act quickly, and lawmakers, and try to get some change, because frankly, everyone should be fed up with what we're seeing in the world today. No, to see the complete disregard for Black lives. I mean, that's what it was. When you look at the way George Floyd was killed, when you look at the way those cops shot Jacob Blake, that is just complete disregard for his life, and complete disregard for the kids. His kids were right in the car. They're scarred for life now. They're never going to recover from seeing something like that. And so those are things that Fred Van Vliet and Norman Powell and Pascal Siakam, uh, they're extremely, I don't want to say discouraged, but they're down. Uh, they're obviously emotionally down, but they feel the need, the urgency to make something happen right now.
100%. Like you said, I mean, they felt down, and you of course cover the Raptors, and have been, keeping in touch with, or keeping close with their quotes, and what they've been saying the last few days. Of course, like you said, it has been, they've been vocal about saying about how it affects, their mentality and their even, their mindset when playing, and it's very hard. I just want to, rewind here a little bit, and ask you, even if the Bucks didn't boycott today, the last few days, were you getting the sense, especially when the Raptors met with the Celtics for that players meeting, were you getting the sense that it was likely going, like the Raptors would boycott most likely, or what were you thinking would happen with the Raptors had the Bucks not boycotted their game today?
Well, so if the games had played out today, I think I still would have been 50-50 on what was going to happen. I think for me, one of the things I tweeted was just because of how emotionally drained they seemed, and because of the impression I got that they were really struggling in terms of their mental health, just really not, they were just out of it. And Nick Nurse said it too. He wanted to give them as much time as they could, and they tried to compartmentalize and say, okay, we're gonna talk about what we can do action wise to go from here, and then when they tried to flip over and sort of go through plays and whatnot, he could tell that some players were out of it. So from that standpoint, I was saying that, like, at that point I didn't even think they needed sort of a big picture send a message reason to not play. Like, considering everything that's been put on their shoulders, it's like, here, come play in this bubble as this global pandemic is going on, and deal with the stress of that, be away from your families, then be leaders in this social justice movement, and use the platform and these press conferences every single day to voice your concerns and further the conversation. It's a lot to put an individual. And I think again, this is just a breaking point. So either way, if that game went down Thursday, I can't imagine we would have seen anywhere near let alone playoff type intensity, just any type of basketball pickup, whatever you want to call it. I don't think you would have seen any type of desire to really play a game and win.
Of course, 100%.
Absolutely. And since you're talking about the importance, I think it really goes to show that today's moment is going to be remembered for a very long time. And just like Matthew said earlier, I guess what I'm trying to say is, what do you think is going to be the significance of today's moment for those who don't really fully understand?
So I think a lot of people who maybe don't understand, and there'll be a lot of other people who will be saying, well, guess what? Black people are still going to get killed. Players playing and players not playing is not going to change that. We were seeing unarmed black people get killed, and that's going to continue. And frankly, it is going to continue. But what the NBA players are trying to do right now, when you are literally forcing the board of governors, with each owner of the franchise, to look and say, hey, my team is not stepping onto the basketball court, that's money out of my pocket. Now you're forcing their hand. You're forcing them to say, okay, this has clearly reached a point of seriousness that I have to acknowledge. I have to maybe reach out to my political contacts. I have to reach out to lawmakers, whoever I know that can try to make this situation better right now and have some changes. The Milwaukee Bucks, they not only didn't enter the court, they spent their time in the locker room trying to contact the attorney general of Wisconsin and get justice as soon as possible. And so that's what this is about. I think as a society, we all try to say, oh, we'll do our part day by day, and for good people, over time, things will improve, things will get better. But people have been saying that for a long time, and
Hmm.
nothing has changed. So
100%.
now it's time to just ramp things up to the next level because this can't continue.
Hmm.
Exactly.
As a quick follow-up, do you think that this is going you could see other sports leagues following suit? Like I know the Milwaukee Brewers just recently announced that they're not going to be playing in tonight's game, but just other leagues in general, and maybe not the NHL, but maybe when the NFL comes back, do you think more moves like this are going to be following?
You don't think the NHL is going to follow through? No, I'm joking. I mean,
I mean, we could wish, but that would be in an ideal world. We've been putting up with them
but I
for
mean,
enough right now.
that's the point right there, though, right? Like
Exactly.
that's the magnitude of the battle that's being fought right now. You had Fred Van Vliet and Norman Powell speaking on the issues, the real world issues that are at hand right now. When they had their press conferences yesterday, and then on the other side of it, you had the NHL talking about having some kind of fancy breakfast and all that type of stuff. And so it really adds perspective to what these different people in these different leagues stand for. And again, let's make no mistake, it's not like uh, this is the NBA as a league making a big statement, right? These are the players
Hmm.
making a statement
Hmm.
because the NBA had the opportunity to try and make a big statement, and they really didn't. They when the players wanted to wear certain names on the back of their jerseys, they said no, these are your choices. When it came time to sort of having the board of governors again put out a real statement and promote real action, that didn't happen. And people will point to the 10-year 300 million deal that was made to sort of help empower black people and the black community. But let's do the math on that. That's 30 teams, 300 million divided by 10. That's each board of governor giving up $1 million a year. And you think about how much money they make, how significant is that really?
Hmm.
And so when you look at the other leagues, I definitely think when you think about who consumes the sports, there's a huge statement to be made if the NFL were to follow along, if Major League Baseball were to follow along, if the NHL were to follow along, um, and and that again speaks to the broader message, right? It,
Hmm.
why are black people right now saying they're sick and tired of being sick and tired? Because they're tired of having to fight for themselves all this time,
Hmm.
and it's time for everyone else around them, uh, all white people, brown people, Asian people, everyone to stand together and say that enough is enough.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, and then I mean, just as you put it, like it's such a huge statement either way. Of course, people are gonna argue, that they don't see what this does, but I think just the fact that so many people are talking about it and can argue about that shows how big of a statement this is, and they are trying to take action through that. So it definitely is a huge thing, and hopefully, like, it does spread to other leagues, and obviously it um, you know brings about more change. But my next question is obviously, I mean, Woj tweeted today that the players are feeling very raw emotions right now, and that they're kind of already worn out of the bubble. And one veteran player even said the season is in jeopardy. So I got to ask you, do you think the season is in jeopardy, and what do you think will happen from here?
Well, the season is in jeopardy if the board of governors uh, aren't willing to act uh, and aren't, you know, standing with the players and pushing for real action. The same way that the Milwaukee Bucks players in the locker room were getting on the phone and contacting the Wisconsin Attorney General. I'd like to think they got the contact from their, uh, you know, front office or board of governor, whoever it may be, and that they're doing this together. But if that's not the case, then all these owners need to get on the phone as well. And I think that's where potentially you're looking at the season it being in jeopardy. But I think because of the stand that the players are taking, I think this will definitely force everyone's hands into doing more. And I think this is where I'll go back to before everyone even entered the bubble, when the conversation was about whether they should play or whether they should not play. There wasn't a wrong answer at that time. Any player who thought that it wasn't in the best interest to play and possibly distract from the message, they were perfectly entitled to feel that way. Those who wanted to play and earn that type of generational wealth that can help their families and the Black community as a whole going into future generations, they were perfectly entitled to play for those reasons as well, and use the platform that the NBA was going to give them. But now I think the reason this message is so powerful is because everyone is anticipating these playoff games. And so you had a situation where everyone's turning on the TV to watch a playoff game, and now you get this huge announcement that no, there will be no basketball today. So I don't think the entire season is in jeopardy, because I think I would like to believe, the optimist in me will like to believe that something real, something tangible will come of this. And with that, the players will be open to returning. But I wouldn't rule it out either.
100%. And I like your point about, how a lot of people are watching, and then it kind of, the season's kind of just ending now. But I think it's crazy. I just thought about now that this statement, I feel, is even bigger right now, because kind of the NBA's return has kind of brought a lot of eyes right now onto the NBA. And then for them to do this today is pretty spectacular, because there's definitely a lot of eyes on them, which is great. So, yeah. But Michael, do you have any other questions?
Honestly, I guess really what comes down to is what should sports leagues in general be looking to do to be more than just acknowledging the problems and showing actual support? Because I feel there's certain leagues, you pretty much know who I'm referring to, that maybe could be doing a better job. And I guess really it's just what can sports leagues do from here to really just help the fight?
Yeah, I mean, just get beyond the cosmetic stuff, right? When you look across, again, we had the conversation about Masai. When you look across the major sports leagues, how many Black presidents do you see of these teams? How many minority presidents do you see of these teams? How many minorities are in these board meetings? So that's where you have to create spaces for Black people. And I would say, minorities as well, in terms of just gaining better perspective and understanding how you can create better opportunities. Because at the end of the day, if you just have one race in the boardroom, you're shutting yourself out from all these different experiences, and you really have no idea how to make a good decision when it comes to diversity, when it comes to frankly, just maximizing everyone that could potentially be at your disposal. And so that's what organizations should be looking to do. And frankly, part of why the Raptors have set themselves apart, because they do exemplify that. You look at the way Masai has prioritized hiring women, you look at Bobby Webster. He is Asian American. When you look at, going down the line, there are a lot of Black people in the organization. And so that caters to more diversity, more perspectives, and just a better understanding on the whole. And so, yeah, that's what I would advocate for all the organizations, regardless of which league.
For sure. I mean, the Raptors have definitely become the NBA's premier organization in terms of a lot of things, in terms of success and in terms of what they do off the court as well. But I know before we close out, we just have a couple Raptors questions now, because obviously we don't know whether or not the Celtics or Raptors series will get played or when that might happen, but still there is the chance that it does. So we do want to ask a few Raptors questions that we kind of planned. But shifting into that, first I just wanted to ask you, who are some players or what are some things that really stuck out to you in the Raptors first round series against the Nets?
I think right at the top of the list has to be Fred VanVleet, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was incredible, and I think he's been that way ever since he entered the bubble. And what's even more spectacular is the fact that he's maintained that standard off the court in the way he's spoken as well. And so his play on the court, I think he looks like the best Raptor in the bubble, if I'm being perfectly honest. Pascal Siakam, I think has picked it up as the games have gone on. I certainly like his decision making, and I think he's in for a big test against the Celtics if and when that series happens. Beyond that, the takeaways, we've all known over the course of the season that the Raptors have an incredible defense, and they showcased that against the Nets. The other thing too, that's been great to see about this Raptors team, and people probably wondered with Kawhi leaving, is what is their killer instinct like right now? And to see them just shut it down and put away Brooklyn 4-0, to sweep them for the first time in franchise history. And you look at moments within those 4 games as well, when they just decided to turn it on and say, hey, this game is over. The game was over. And so I think that's another thing I take away for them potentially going down and playing more games, that they have that championship swagger. They have that pedigree that's going to carry them a long way.
Exactly. That's exactly the thing I was thinking about too, of course. They really showed, their next man up mentality. It was really fully on display this during their first round series. So it's going to be interesting to see, a more deep team with Boston and how they match up there. But that brings us to our next question, which Michael will ask.
Yeah, it's funny you were talking about mentality, because I think that's one of the things that Raptor fans have been talking about this year's team, and especially talking about last year's team too. So how does this year's team compare to the one last season that won the championship?
This team compared to last year, well, we're still, I think the interesting thing is the big narrative coming into this season has been, the Raptors don't have that A1 superstar. They've lost Kawhi, and everyone has, I won't say everyone, a lot of people have projected that responsibility onto Siakam. And I think the Raptors over the course of the season and through these 4 playoff games have shown that that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. And you look at these 4 games, for example, Pascal Siakam, the whole team recognized that Fred VanVleet is the one who has it going. He's got the hot hand. We'll just ride that. They have no egos. Like a lot of people say, the Raptors don't have superstars. No, they just don't have egos. They have guys who are real stars. Marc Gasol has been a defensive player of the year. Kyle Lowry has been on an all-NBA team. He's a 6-time All-Star. You look at Pascal Siakam being an All-Star starter this year. They have real stars on their team. They just put everything aside for winning. And so I will say, while last year's team maybe catered to Kawhi and tried to figure it out around him, and you look at Kyle Lowry, he was a prime example of that, right? Whenever Kawhi was in the lineup, his numbers went down. Whenever Kawhi was out of the lineup, the Raptors, again, they went 17-5 without Kawhi. And all of a sudden you saw Kyle's numbers go up, and you saw him really take on more of a scoring load and really dominate the game. And I feel like, that's what this team is about. They will, no one's really sacrificing in that sense, but everybody's eating and everyone's happy.
Exactly.
Good way of putting it.
Exactly. I got to ask you the golden question. I feel like when you bring up the Celtics and the Raptors, especially those 2 teams together, all year, it seems like the biggest debate the fans have been trying to settle was Pascal Siakam versus Jason Tatum. So I got to ask you, which player do you really think is better and why? And how might each of them play into this upcoming series? Because I don't know about you, but like all season I've been seeing, Celtics fans, defend Tatum, so much, and Raptors fans rightfully so as well, right there, and they're very close. So I want to know what you think.
It is very close, and it's a tough debate. I think Jason Tatum at this point is the better offensive player. I think he sort of has more in the bag, and I do feel Pascal Siakam is the better defensive player. And so when I look at what the Raptors' identity is and the way Siakam is able to defend, I mean, he's ramped up his defense from what we saw in the regular season to the playoffs. Not that he was a bad defender in the regular season. He's just taken it to another level. And when you look at the Raptors' identity, again, defense wins championships. Siakam just fits this team perfectly. And I don't know that I'll put it this way. I wouldn't, if someone gave me the choice of, hey, just take Siakam out and put Tatum on the Raptors, I wouldn't do it.
I think many Raptors fans are with you there, and I think it is a give and take thing when it comes to those two players. It's, they're very similar in terms of the level of eliteness. They both have their pros, but it's in different ways. So it's definitely going to be very interesting this series.
Yeah.
So then our next question is how do you think the Raptors will match up against the Celtics?
Yeah, I think it's arguably their toughest matchup in the East. I think the Celtics do so many things that take away the Raptors' best strengths. You look at the Raptors, they love to get out and transition. They were the number one transition team in the league, and that's a big part of their offense. The Celtics take really good care of the ball. They've got guys like Kemba Walker, Jason Tatum, who handle the ball most of the time in the pick and roll. And so they're really effective with it. And so the Raptors are going to be challenged to get out and transition. Then you look at, again, the way Kemba and Jason Tatum operate in those pick and rolls. They know how to shoot. They're very capable shooters in the mid-range. And so that takes away, I would say, some of the flexibility of the Raptors defense because, again, there's only so much zone that you can use against a team that can shoot the ball from anywhere, that has multiple ball handlers, that's sort of forcing you to make decisions and make quick choices in terms of who you're extending out to, who you're pressuring on the ball. And so, again, the Celtics put a lot of pressure on the Raptors, but the one guy that eases that pressure, the one guy whose absence eases that pressure is Gordon Hayward. I think he would have been a real key to this series. And, I mean, now with the situation, who knows when we get to see this series actually play out? Who knows? He might even recover in time. And so if he's in this series, again, that's another ball handler. That's another guy who can bust a zone. That's another guy with length. I would say the Raptors, they feel comfortable sort of Pascal Siakam when he's switched on to a big, for example. We saw at times when Jared Allen was switched on to Pascal Siakam on the perimeter that he was taking him off the bounce and getting to the basket. And the Celtics, they're going to be switching between their perimeter guys because of their wing depth. And they've got Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, who will arguably spend all of their minutes defending Pascal Siakam. Jaylen Brown has been the primary defender on Pascal through the regular season, so he will get the most looks at him. But Jason Tatum's going to get some looks at him as well. And those are the matchups where I feel present Pascal the most problems. But again, the strength for the Raptors is their mentality that they've gained through experience. I do think Nick Nurse has a slight edge in the coaching department. And I do feel that the Raptors, because of their two-way ability between Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet, I do think if Gordon Hayward is hurt, then you've got Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet going up against Marcus Smart and Kemba Walker. And so I'll take Lowry and VanVleet over them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Since we're talking about Tatum, I believe that's going to be one player that Raptors fans should be keeping an eye out. But the Celtics team is still very much talented, and I think if this series does get to be played, it should be very interesting, and I think it'll go the distance. But that'll be saved for a little bit later. But that's because of the fact that the Celtics have a very talented core. And I want to ask you if there's any Celtics besides Tatum that Raptors fans should be aware of as a threat to turn the tides in Boston's favor.
Well, I think you can't if these games are boycotted for long enough and suspended for long enough, and Gordon Hayward is able to come back healthy, then I think he is a real problem. I think his value sort of gets undermined on this Celtics team because people talk about Jason Tatum first, and then Jaylen Brown, and then Kemba Walker, but I think he's someone that is a real problem for the Raptors with his length, with his ability to create for others. And so he is the one that I would probably look out for, his status.
Mm-hmm.
Besides that, I mean, Kemba Walker has been a Raptor killer for a long time, even when he was wearing a Hornets uniform. And so that's someone that I would look at as well and say, hey, you've got to sort of turn off the tap with him and make him a passer as much as possible, because he's had some really big scoring games against the Raptors over his career.
Absolutely. Kemba Walker is definitely one player that I'd be keeping an eye on. And I think these playoffs, like, he's been looking forward to these playoffs for a long time, because I can't remember off the top of my head the last time the Hornets were in the series conversation was that 2016, I want to say? Was that the last time they were in the playoffs, or 2018?
Right. Yeah. I think 2016 they lost in the first round to Miami, if I remember correctly. And then the Raptors played the Heat in the second round.
Absolutely. That's why I say you make a really good point, because there's a guy that's going to be super motivated to try and make a run out of this. If this is, who knows how many more chances he's going to get, right?
Yep, no question. That definitely plays onto different players' minds. I mean, I think that played into the Raptors' minds last year too, right? In that sense that, hey, Kawhi might not be here. This might be the best chance that we have at a title. And so in that same way, I think if there's anything 2020 has taught us, it's to not take anything for granted. So this moment right now, I definitely think guys like Kemba and a lot of people will be looking at it and saying, hey, whenever we play again, we got to grasp this opportunity.
Of course,
that's great. Absolutely. Okay, this has been a great interview, and thank you so much for providing your perspective. Before we let you go, two things. First, what are your predictions for this round if it does get played?
Just for the Raptors and Celtics, or
Raptors and Celtics.
Okay. I will take the Raptors in 7 games. I think it'll be a really, really tough series. I think these two teams are really evenly matched, but I think ultimately the Raptors' experience, their championship pedigree, and their ability to adjust, I think that'll get them through in the end.
And then, Michael, what was the second part that you wanted to ask?
I guess it's just plug in your socials so people know where to find you.
Oh, yeah. You can follow me on Twitter at Vivek Jacob, and you can find my work at Complex Canada, Raptors Republic, and Sportsnet as well. Thanks so much for having me, guys. This was a fun chat. I really enjoyed it.
Of course, no worries. And yeah, to the listeners, definitely check him out. Some of his stuff on Raptors Republic is some of my favorite stuff to check out. So definitely go take a look. Again, thank you so much, Vivek, for joining us. We really appreciate it.
And thank you for providing your insight. It was really appreciated.
I appreciate you guys having me on. Keep doing your thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
what a great discussion with Vivek here on the podcast. Great guy, great reporter. Make sure to check out his stuff. Again, on Complex, Raptors Republic. He helps host the Locked On Raptors podcast and just a whole bunch of things. So definitely check him out.
And yeah, that was a really great discussion. He provided a lot of valuable insight, and especially on the news of today's boycotts. It was definitely very important that we got to have him on to discuss those things. Just to really wrap up the talk about the NBA, though, I guess he said his predictions for the series. Let's assume this series does happen, whenever that is. What do you predict this series is going to be?
I mean, again, I was right there with him and thinking Raptors in 7, 100%. Yeah, I think it's going to go the distance. Last year Philly took Toronto to 7 games, and I honestly think Boston's the team that Toronto needs to be scared of the most, in a good way though. I just think they match up very, very well against the Raptors, but I think I definitely do think the Raptors can still find ways to win, and I think it'll go the distance to 7 games. But yeah, What about you?
I think the same thing too. I think unlike the previous series where the Raptors were facing a team that was depleted with injuries, plus a bunch of their star players had not participated in the bubble, they were probably going to be in for an easy time, in a sense, and no more than 5 games is going to be played in that series. But now they're facing their first true test of this playoffs. The Celtics are no joke. They are a legit threat, and I think that the Raptors should definitely take them seriously, because this series does have the potential to go the distance to 7 games. And at the end of the day, I still think the Raptors are going to win this series, but I think just like the 76ers last year, I think they're going to be their first true test. And I think that's something that if they can pass this test, they definitely got a good shot.
For sure. And again, that's all banking on the belief that the season will eventually resume, and that's banking on the belief that we think, I really do think all teams will follow suit and boycott all their games. We'll just have to see in the next coming days, but that's definitely the biggest. What happened today is definitely the biggest topic of this podcast, and I want to talk about what other sports are doing, but before I talk about that, I'm amazed at what the NBA players are doing. Like it's crazy, and we're titling this podcast, "Is This Loud Enough?" And I feel like that has a lot of meaning to it. When you proposed that to me, I loved it, because back in June when the George Floyd shooting happened, so many people protests. There were so many protests. The world really came together to try and fight racism and injustice, and try to bring forth change to try and build a society that's anti-racist and just a better place to live in. And even then, even now, we still have people, well, not exactly arguing, but a lot of people who don't understand what this statement really means and what the impact it has. And again, like, if back in June, if it wasn't loud enough, because there are still a lot of people who don't really grasp the impact of what's going on. Right now, I feel like, if anything, again, back to our title, the NBA players right now are saying, well, is this loud enough? Is, putting the season on the line and walking out on the season, is this loud enough? Because that's how serious this is to everyone. And I hope everyone realizes how serious this is. So I just wanted to say that.
You want to know who's really not taking it as seriously as those other leagues? At the time that we're recording this, the NHL is trending on Twitter. And usually that would probably mean something good happened for the league. Like, oh, the NHL's doing this. The NHL's back. This is great. Not tonight. Tonight, it's for the exact opposite reasons. And it's much deserved that they're getting some criticism, because unlike the MLB, which has some games that are being boycotted, we already saw that with the NBA, the NHL, brace yourselves, are going to have a moment of reflection. Wow. Guys, did you hear that? The NHL solved racism by reflecting. Great job. Great
I'm
job.
I'm not even trying to, like come at the NHL. I mean, the NHL is a great league in many regards, but they really need to take action because they have a huge platform and a huge voice. And at this point, what would reflecting do? They've been reflecting for the last how long when these issues have, arose. And like
it's a literary embod.
Go ahead.
It's just basically. I'm just basically going to add. It's the literal embodiment of the much to think about tweet.
Honestly, and I was just about to say, like, these players, NHL players, have this platform, and we've criticized how they've been going about these issues the last month, ever since the season returned. And players, league officials would say, they've been listening and learning things. They say things to that extent. They've been listening and learning. Well, like, you can only listen and learn for so long till you're actually, like, when have you actually learned? And when is it time to put what you learned to use? Like, right now is time to put that to use. I mean, hockey and basketball, we even talked about last week in just a little, but they are very similar in a lot of ways, and you really can't have one without the other, and especially in the NHL's regard, because I do kind of feel like it is more of the NHL does look over to the NBA for a lot of things, and hockey players love looking at basketball culture and benefiting from especially black culture as well, of looking at black culture, basketball culture, and benefiting from it. And it's enough of reflecting, enough of listening and learning, and time to take action. And we see the Brewers, they are boycotting today's game. And I mean, of course, that's Milwaukee's team, and that's kind of the area that is in relation to the Jacob Blake shooting. But I believe that, and that Major League Baseball teams will follow suit and start boycotting, and just for the NHL just to kind of sit back and be the one league that just kind of sits back always, it's really sad to see.
It's crazy because there has been quite a lot that's been happening in the NHL. Was it the Logan Couture incident, Kasperi Kapanen and his private affairs? Can't even think of anything else off the top of my head, but this just tops it all. Like, this is pretty much an embodiment of just how messy of a public relation the NHL currently has with with their fans, because there's so much work that has to be done for them to properly have the trust of, like, minorities, because a lot of minorities do not feel safe. I have seen a few tweets today of people of color saying, I don't feel safe watching hockey. I don't feel safe as a fan of this sport. And that's sad. That no one should be feeling unease, afraid, and scared while watching a sport. That just makes it all the more apparent that these problems continue to persist and that there should be serious action done. Because I'm going to be repeating myself here, but like I said, people should not be afraid to watch a sport. That's it.
Of course. I'm with you right there. And yeah, I mean, I think it just goes back to the whole point of, I mean, it's about time, hockey players really take the stand with their platform. I mean, don't just let, the fact that Tyler Seguin, Robin Lehner, Ryan Reeves, Matt Dumba, don't let their kneeling go to waste, and that was a big action. Just don't let it go to waste. Like, the time has come to actually show that you can make a difference and to take action and it's unfortunate to see. It's unfortunate to see that the NHL is still falling in its ways of, staying very tight to the chest and just going with something super safe, which is a moment of reflection. We haven't been reflecting for so long where we need action now. But yeah, that's that.
So I want to quickly point up something before you're on that point. Here's a tweet from Arthur Staple. The New York Islanders and the Philadelphia Flyers just finished their game, which really should have been played, but I digress. Anders Lee on the NBA protests. It's a great thing they're doing. Those are conversations we need to have, but we just got off the ice. I just want to get your reaction to a quote like that, and the fact that the Lightning and Bruins game is going to be played.
I mean, I want to know your reaction actually first.
I think we're gonna feel the same way.
Yeah,
we both feel frustrated.
It is just frustrating. I think it's just beating kind of the same mindset that we've had for the longest time. It's just that hockey culture needs to improve, and there's are times where you shouldn't just do as you're told, or at least we hope that you don't just do as you're told, because sometimes the best thing to do is outside of the box that you're basically in. Yeah, it's a lot of that same reaction there. But I think you mentioned it. We could have spoken about the the Kasperi-Kapanen trade. We could have broke that down, but this isn't the time for that right now. And we'll just see how things play out in the next few days. I want to give a quick shout out to the WNBA as well. Huge difference makers in what's been going on, and they've been really big on bringing about social change and making people more aware. And we fully support everything that they're doing, and they are also boycotting their games tonight. So huge shout out to them over at the WNBA. And
yeah, absolutely.
I think today we wanted to keep this podcast straight to the point with what happened today. And I think we should end it there.
Yes, for anyone that was really looking forward to us redoing the 23rd. Yeah, basically what I was going to say is, first of all, for anyone that was looking forward to us redoing the 2013 NBA draft.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we will be doing that. We'll be doing that next week, for sure. But right now is not the time. Again, the biggest topic of today was these boycotts, the impact of them, and I guess what's to come from them. Yeah, we'll close out the podcast there. As always, you can tweet us, follow us, send us feedback at on our Twitters, our personal Twitters. Mine is at Matt_Rodrigo_.
Mine's at the Leafs IMO, and our Twitter account is Behind the Net Pod.
Yep.
But before we let you guys go, I just want to leave you with this. After everything that's been happening today, we want to ask you which side of history you want to be on. We hope to God that you pick the right side of history.
For sure. And before I end off the pod, again, links will be in the bio or the description of the episode, but we'll put some resources there. Definitely a big thing is just keep educating yourself and others and about the movement right now. Black Lives Matter. We definitely need more people to fight against racism and injustice in our own local communities and in the world in general, in our countries and everything in between. And I think the biggest resource that I want to link people is Black Lives Matters. That's with an S at the end. .carrd.co. So that one has a bunch of links. You can donate. You can read more about the movement and basically just continue to educate yourself and take action if you can in a number of different ways. So we'll leave you guys with that. That's the end of this week, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Black Lives Matter.